Welcome to the Affiliated Monitors Expert Podcast, hosted by Tom Fox on the Compliance Podcast Network. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back with Mikhail Gordon of Affiliated Monitors for part two of our five-part exploration of aspects of monitorships. Today, we're going to take a look at the American Bar Association's guidelines on monitors and how that really works into the independence or independent integrity monitor. This is one of the key themes of this podcast series. So, Mikhail, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Tom. Happy to be back.
We've actually met at a ABA function or two, but I was wondering if you could talk about your involvement with the American Bar Association.
Sure. Yes. In fact, we'd like to see it more. I've been heavily involved in the ABA for more than a decade now. I currently serve on the Council of the Section of International Law. I've done that for about 10 years. For the past 2 years, I served as the Rule of Law Officer, and I'm currently serving as the Technology Officer. And of course, in addition to that, I've served on a number of committee levels, co-chair of the International Anti-Corruption Committee, International Anti-Money Laundering Committee, Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. You can see a little bit of a theme here happening. I chaired the ABA's Gatekeeper Task Force on Regulation of the Profession, and I continue to serve as a senior advisor to the Anti-Corruption Committee, and I wear a few other hats with the organization. You can tell I'm a fan of the ABA.
So one of the things, or rather the criminal justice section has issued standards for monitors. Could you tell us a little bit about them and why you think they are so important?
Absolutely. And I want to start with saying, because monitors can serve a variety of functions, advising organizations on the implementation of compliance programs, auditing compliance with an agreement with a regulator, investigating an organization's compliance with the law, as well as acting to reduce fraud, waste, abuse, and increase the organization's economy, efficiency, effectiveness. There's a lot there, and I think the ABA, via its criminal justice section, issued these standards for monitors, and it's really noteworthy that very near the top, under the selection process, under these standards, Standard 24 2.2, under the candidate pool, it emphasizes that the selection process of a monitor should encourage consideration of a broad range of monitor candidates and should not be artificially limited by demographic, professional, and geographic factors. And under qualifications, integrity, credibility, and professionalism are at the top of the list. And under potential exclusions, there are a number of examples the standards provide that really should be baked into every monitor selection process. Anything, of course, that appears to create a conflict of interest and thus impair, or importantly, to be perceived to impair the monitor's judgment or independence are non-starters. But the standards actually go further. They go on to provide additional factors that should be considered, some of which may seem obvious to us, not having worked for the organization being monitored during the time of the activity in question. But it also includes not holding prior affiliation with a firm that provided legal or other professional services to the organization being monitored. And this part, I think, is just so key. Any other factor that could bias or impair or be perceived to bias or impair the monitor's judgment, objectivity, independence, including the prospect of future engagements or other economic considerations that could influence its independence. I think that's just, that really emphasizes the importance of independence.
So, Mikhail, monitors are known with a variety of names. They can be independent private sector inspector generals. They can be ombudsman. Monitors certainly can be both from the criminal side of the docket or the civil side, and they are certainly used by a wide group of federal, state, municipal, and even county regulators far beyond the Department of Justice. And so I was wondering, are the ABA guidelines really broad enough to encompass all of these different types of monitors, or do you advocate some other structure?
I think the standards are a terrific start. I think there's always more we can do. These standards are an extension of the federal regulation that govern, for instance, 28 CFR 45.2, really sounding like a lawyer now. But they govern DOJ employee responsibilities. The standards, the ABA standards, go beyond that employee responsibility, where, under the regulations, relationships, including friendships of a DOJ employee to a person or organization that's being criminally investigated or prosecuted, right, is to be judged on an individual basis with due regard given to the subjective opinion of the employee. The ABA standards really go beyond that. They extend into civil and criminal proceedings. And I think they recognize that even the mere perception of bias or impairment of objectivity is absolutely essential when selecting a monitor. And I know there's been a lot of academic debate about whether there should be one set of standards for monitors. I don't think that's possible given the various forms monitorships can take. But I do think encoding true independence is essential, no matter what form that monitorship takes and what title you give it, whether it's an IPSIG or an ombudsman, an external compliance officer, whatever you call it.
Well, Kyle, one of the themes that I've heard you talk about in this episode that I frankly had not focused on previously was not bias or partiality, but even the appearance of bias or partiality.
The perception, and I think this gets a little lost at times during the selection process, because and again, there's been a lot of print on this. Whether there should be more transparency on the reports from monitors. Monitors are designed to be independent. In many instances, we're reporting to the court, and a judge is independent, and I think that perception is very critical for how well the public and how well external stakeholders feel the value of the monitorship, what's been delivered there. That perception means a lot. It invests trust and faith in the institution of oversight.
Well, Cal, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but I hope our listeners will join us again for part 3 in our 5-part exploration, where we take a look at teaching compliance and investigations at the International Anti-Corruption Academy, which, frankly, I can't wait to find out more about. So I look forward to continuing the conversation, and thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox again. I'd like to thank you for listening to this episode of our 5-part series exploring aspects of monitorships with Mikhail Gordon, Managing Director at Affiliated Monitors. For more information on Affiliated Monitors, check out their website, www.affiliatedmonitors.com. I hope you'll join us again for another episode where Mikhail and I take a look at another aspect of monitorships, which is something that you should consider in your compliance program going forward. This 5-part series is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. Thanks again for listening.